I'll start by apologising to anyone who's expected to see a super slick presentation by a highly educated professional. This is not me. All I bring is what's in here and what's on the end of here. And we don't actually need this for a minute, so we'll get reality. 2006, September, I had an accident at work. My arm was trapped, crushed, and almost severed. I was facing about 10 years' worth of surgery and treatment, and I had no guarantee of success. I started researching my condition, and between bouts of surgery, pain, infection, treatment, I checked out exactly what I was letting myself in for and how it could affect my life. After about 6 months or so, no sign of healing, I took my notes to a consultant, asked him to read them, and then explain why it would be beneficial to keep my arm. 4 days later, I became an amputee. I was told that my tissue was turning grey inside and the bones were mush. It would have come off at some stage, anywhere, or it would have killed me. So now it's time to get my life back. All I needed was my bionic hand and a nice skin cover. To work, job done. Yeah, right. Within 12 months of my accident, the strong, fit, active guy that I used to know had almost gone. The guy that I saw in the mirror was slowly turning into a physical and a mental wreck. Within 2 years, I'd had more surgery, more infections, and physically life was a challenge. Psychologically, I was in a very dark place. A place where sometimes just getting through the day was a struggle. I had the mood swings, the massive highs, the crashing lows, the fears, the self-doubts, the frustration, and the anger. The sudden anger that quite often I'd take out on my wife or my son. It took me an awful long time to appreciate that they'd also lost my arm. Anyway, moved forward a few years, and I managed to get a Greifer. This is NHS, and it's a very functional piece of kit. You'll probably admit it's pretty gruesome. Okay, so I've now got this. I noticed at probably what was the lowest point of my life, a change in other people's attitudes towards me. Strangers would often avoid me. Very rarely would they make eye contact or maybe start a conversation. They'd stop and stare, sometimes with pity or fear or disgust. Maybe they just point and laugh. Catch a look, you're a cripple, have your hands up. Or because I got hurt. I stopped going out, I became really withdrawn. Sometimes I'd shut myself away from everyone. I'd sit out in my garage, just me and my demons. In about 3 years after my accident, my life changed yet again. Bang, heart attack, dead, game over. Or so I thought. I was fitted with 6 heart stents and sent off to cardiac rehab. So now we move on to 2012. I get a phone call. A company called RSL Sleep have a new prosthetic. Would I help trial it? Oh yeah. And a couple of months later, I became the first guy in the world to start wearing the bionic V3. If it squeaks, I do apologise. So, this is my new hand, and this is how it works. It's ever so simple. From my elbow to my wrist is what we call the socket. There's a silicone liner inside with 2 electrodes embedded into it, and they sit on top of muscles. So effectively, all I do is imagine I'm opening a beer, the muscles contract, the electrode recognises the contraction, signals the hand open. I squeeze a ball, and it closes. If you're a bloke and you can't squeeze your balls and open a beer, you don't deserve to have one. Normally a prosthetic would just give you this basic movement. But with this one, I can change the grips. So I'll open it fully. I'll give a second open signal now. When I close, it'll change into what they call power grip. This is my handshake grip. This is the one I use for being human. It's a nice grip. It's also very strong. I can swing 40, 50 kilos off this without a problem. The thumb is also removable. This allows me to hold my books, keys, credit cards. I can change the grip again. This is good for typing, but for this, I'd either need to do so and so, or I can use the wrist. So contract both muscles. You might hear a beep. Okay, so now open a beer, it turns this way, squeeze a ball, and I'm ready to type. If I want to use the mouse, the look button on the back, I press that, and now I'm ready to use the mouse if I want to do that. Again, if I want to freak children out, which, you know, that's always now, I've used this every day that I've had it. The effect on my life has been extraordinary. It's given back so much more than just the ability to crack an egg or tie my shoelaces. I've lost my thread, because I'm not a professional. You know, I'll go out and I found out that people don't avoid me. They'll stop and talk. They don't laugh at me, they laugh with me. And I'll probably go show off a little bit. And the best thing for me is, I call it the bionic effect. And it's not plugging in product, it's just me. And it's when I shake hands with someone, they smile. They always smile. And to me, that handshake and that smile is a sign of acceptance and trust. Realistically, isn't that what we want? Accepted and trusted for who we are. No one ever asks to shake their hand. It's strange. Now, opinions, they're like backsides. We've all got one. The way I see it, if you want to really move into an age where cybernetic enhancement is okay, you need three things. You need acceptance. If you're not accepted by people around you, trying to fit into society is really difficult. Believe me, I've been there. You need trust. You need to trust that the technology being developed is going to benefit the whole of mankind and not be used to our detriment. And you need disabled people. Strange. Able-bodied people now being reliant on disabled people. Because we're the people who can push the technology forward. Because we're the people that need the technology. You know, today there are well over 20 million amputees who've got no access to any type of prosthetic whatsoever. Start with them. They'll be your test pilots. Because once people see these guys in the street, it will become acceptable. It will become a normal part of everyday life. And then if any of you want to chop an arm or a leg off, go for it. No one's going to laugh at you then. But if you do it now, you'll be vilified. You can't do it while there's people without. That, to me, is my argument. So while you discuss it tonight, I mean, you can either support the notion that we help disabled people throughout the world to live the kind of independent lives that most of us take for granted, and maybe in the process push the cybernetic future forward. Or you might be of the opinion that it's morally wrong to use disabled people as the lab rats of the 21st century. Full stop. I've got nothing else to say.
Take a couple of questions and then we move on. So, anybody has a question?
There you go.
Yeah. So Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. You spoke about the device picks up the muscles.
Yes.
How many signals is it possible for it?
With
Yours
this,
works
I
on
just
two,
do two.
but presumably our hands have a lot more signals
Yeah.
running through. Is there a limit
Software
to how many
depends.
they can pick
Well,
up?
no, I'm hoping now. I was speaking to someone just recently about using a system that's being developed. They call it a haptic band. Basically, it's a massive sensors that fit around the arm, and they work in conjunction with the hand. So every time you switch the prosthetic on, it goes through a self-test system. It will do like Simon says. It will make an open hand. You then, with your phantom limb, make the open hand. And it will run you for a sequence for about 30 seconds, and at the end of it, you will have maybe 15 or 20 hand grips available to you. So all you do is think, point your finger, and it will point. That's the next stage. I'm hoping to get involved with that. Fingers crossed, I'll get a chance. That sounds fascinating.
It was funny you talking about how it's got to be accepted, because I was reading something lately about how a lot of amputees, when they get prosthetic limbs, are starting having beautifully stylised instead of having them skin coloured, but it just looks ace, man.
Well, okay.
Funny enough, you should mention that, because there is a lot of that is happening with Help for Heroes. You know, the boys don't just want the replacement; they don't really want that,
Yes.
because it's never going to be the same. So just as well can go for it.
Yeah.
So people want the phone chargers, or special pocket, or I mean, the imagination is your limit, really.
I saw one was camouflage.
See now? So give you a hand. When it's on the table on its own, it looks kind of good. But when you compare it to your other hand, it looks really weird. And when you're walking down the street, people notice the fact that it looks weird, and the first thing they do is they double take. The eyebrows come down. You know? It's the look that says, what are you doing here? Why have you got that? You don't belong. It's that scowling look. I don't get that with this.
That's cool, man.
Because when I walk down the street, it's this robot arm and there's a body in it, I'll controlling it.
Yeah.
There's no confusion. There's never. The double takes are like, and to get that reaction is so much more positive to get that one. That's the one that stopped me going out. That's the one that caused my heart attack. I don't get that anymore. It's kind of
Yes, it's the uncanny valley syndrome.
Yeah.
Even animals have it. I looked at some research when you mentioned that last time. It's a very kind of deeply atavistic, something we carry, that if something looks completely different, it's fine. But if something is pretending to be human, we have a very low threshold for that. Really low threshold.
Is this the idea that humans, these androids, look creepy and dolls look
Right.
creepy?
Yeah.
Right, you're better off going a completely different way and
Yeah.
making them look
Yeah.
spacey. Yes.
And for me, I mean, I figure it just takes the confusion away. You know, I prefer it that way. It breaks down one of those barriers.
Okay, I think we're going to continue. Sorry, one more question.
So how far is this in terms of development? Obviously you've had it for some time now because I've seen it online and understand it as well. But is this commercially available now? Is this being out there? How many are there?
There are more people in Moscow wearing one of these today than there are in England. So the NHS really needs to open its eyes to the 21st century and see the benefits of this. I mean, if governments and businesses are spending millions and millions every year making exosuits for soldiers so they can go and make more disabled people, I think they've got it wrong somewhere. The NHS should wake up to the benefits of this sort of technology and realise that it doesn't just mean that you can pick up an egg, it means that you can fit back in, you can go to work, you can pay your tax, you can be part of society, instead of being on the benefit, being just saying, oh, well, woe is me, I need looking after. That's the difference that this
In terms of
technology makes.
accessibility, then how much is this still out of reach for the ordinary NHS system?
It's only out of reach for the NHS because the NHS wants to keep that out of reach. This costs less than a second-hand Fiesta. If I said to you, give me your car keys or give me your arm, you give me your car keys, you give me your bank card, you give me your house keys, you probably give me your wife or your girlfriend. That's how cheap these are when you compare it to reality. You know, I mean, I think sometimes people need to perhaps just wake up and smell the flowers. Just take time every now and again. Just stop. Look at the sky. Smell the flowers. I mean, how many of you did on the way in? How many people smelled the flowers on the way in? None of you. How many of you smell the flowers on the way out? Just take the time, it's worth it.
Can I just quickly ask, this touches on suction.
Yeah.
In the future, is there any way of connecting the nerves and making a robotic nerve and then connecting it to the bone so it's like permanently there and maybe you can just take the hand off? I mean, I'm sure there's people working on that, but is that something that can happen or?
Trench foot.
Trench foot?
If you've got your hand inside a rubber glove for 3 weeks, what happens to your hand?
Yeah.
If I've got my stump inside.
That's what it is.
The only realistic way of doing it is osseointegration. It's where you've got titanium pins into the bone, you have the bayonet end coming out, reindeer technology so that it doesn't mould, and then you just clip straight onto the end. Then if you want to run wires from the nose straight through the metal, that's fine. But that's way in the future, I think.
Actually, we were discussing it before. The alternative approach is to transplant somebody else's hand, which is being pursued in a couple of places, but not so much in the UK. I think Nigel has got a view on that. The downside is obviously that you're wearing it as you're having transplanted liver, so you have to keep going with the immune system suppressants, which probably take 20 years of your life. So I think UK view has been so far that we're not going to pursue it, except for £1 million experiment, which didn't go down very well. I mean, it was successful, but at quite high price. So at the moment, we're really looking at solutions which are modular and quite low tech in a way. I mean, in a way, this is quite low tech as comparing to a real hand transplant. And even going further to 3D printing and maybe having the ability for Nigel to print out different colors if he fancies an orange and being able to do it at home. I mean, he probably is going to get to that point.
I'm already doing it with sockets. I've got, this is vinyl wrap like we do with cars. It started off this colour. I did it this colour to match the little white hand that was coming out. I was testing it last week. And I've got the white arm just to make it look like a stormtrooper. So yeah, the sky's the limit now.
And kids love the 3D printing of their prosthetics because obviously for them it's a toy. So colors, different textures. We've seen filament made of, it includes smell. So kids can print out the replacements with sort of slight aromatic chocolate smell because you can embed smell in the filaments like in the cake. So it really is now ready to go further. So last question, everyone.
Thanks, that's absolutely amazing and inspiring. I just wanted to ask, how's your other hand got on with it?
How's this one get on with it?
Yeah.
It's
Were you left with my hand originally?
It's strange. I tend to hold my left hand with my right hand more often than I hold my right hand with my left. There was a point before I got this when the left hand always covered. Now it seems to be the other way around. The right hand holds. And a little kid did it just a couple of weeks ago. He had a 3D printed hand from Enable, a charity thing. They put it on and the first thing he did was to hold his other hand. That's, I mean, there's no conflict. I think they compliment themselves quite nice. I'm not the sort of guy that's going to turn and say, chop the other off, I fancy a pair. No.